My name is Ben Richgruber. I'm Executive Director of the Eau Claire Regional Arts Council, and we're going to give you a quick tour of the State Theater. When you're sitting in the house watching a show, you get one very big picture, but when you actually take a walk around backstage and see some of the inner workings of this theater, you get a bit of a different picture. So I wanted to show that to you with this tour. The first thing I want to point out is how limited our stage space actually is. When you're sitting out in the house and you see the edge of the stage, this is about as far off to the side of the stage as you're going to see. Well, there isn't much backstage space here. In fact, from the edge of the stage, I can take 1, 2, 3 steps, and I'm already at the side stage wall. So when you're watching a show and all those giant sets are moving on and off the stage, this is the limited space that they have to work with here on the stage right side. There's a little more stage left, and we'll show you that soon, but it's pretty limited over here. This is also where our loading dock is. This door over here is all we have for people to load in their sets, costumes, props, and our touring shows to bring in all of their road boxes as well. You can see it's just two double doors, or a set of double doors here, and the height is all we get. The height of that door is it. Our fly rail is above that. Now the fly rail is what all of the ropes and pulleys that you see in classic theater shots are. That takes all the curtains up and down and the lighting instruments up and down, and you can fly some set pieces up and down too. But the fly tower, the way that this theater is constructed, the rail is right up above that loading dock here. So we're limited on the space that we can actually bring boxes and cases in when people are touring. We also don't have an elevator there, so everything needs to come down off of a truck and then get loaded in and then lifted back up onto a truck on the way out. There isn't any direct access there. As we talk about the fly tower, we actually have a smaller tower. This theater was built in 1926, and the needs of theaters then were very different. So in the vaudeville days, you didn't need a very tall fly tower, but with modern theatrical productions, you do. Even our local theater groups, when they rent or buy drops, they have to get a special custom size because our fly rail can't get all the way out. In fact, you might be able to see along the back wall that big white curtain that's hanging about halfway down the wall there. That's called the cyclorama, and that's as far out as that can fly. And you can see it still is very visible to the audience. So most of our stuff can't even go all the way out because our ceiling is actually too low for modern needs. As we're looking at the back wall here too, I want to show you just how close it actually is. This black curtain here represents the back of the stage. And you can see from here, I can reach over and touch the back wall. Farwell Street's on the other side of this wall, and I'm fairly certain that the City of Eau Claire won't allow us to close Farwell Street to make this stage any bigger. So we're landlocked, both on this side and on the side wall that I just showed you for that loading dock as well. There's another building to the other side. So our stage space is very limited. It might look fantastic from the audience, and I give huge kudos to our local theater groups for making it work. But you can see backstage gets very tight very quickly, and with the touring productions that we want to be able to bring in, we're limited based on the space that we have on stage here. When the theater was built in 1926, the stage left wall was just as close to the side stage as that stage right wall that I just showed you. It's about 3 paces off the edge of the stage. But when this building was renovated in the 80s to be the State Theater and Arts Center that it is, this giant hole was actually knocked in the wall, so we could add some additional side stage space. And I can show that to you right now. Now with the addition of side stage space, there is another good 10 paces in here that you're able to store equipment. You can see up above we do have some storage space, though it's fairly limited and difficult to get to. Up there you can also see our very antiquated lighting and dimmer system, which poses some opportunities for our local arts groups to learn about the history of theatrical lighting equipment. Also back here is our grand piano. It's stored underneath a lot of this stuff on the side here. And that's fine. It does fit back there. It doesn't take up too much space. But the big concern with this side stage area is it's not heated or cooled. It goes up and down in temperature with the temperatures outside. And to have an expensive piece of equipment like that grand piano in this space causes some problems. It's very difficult to keep in tune. We often have to have tuners come twice a day, do it once earlier and then once later in the day. We also have to make sure that it sits out on stage for a full day before we even tune it the first time so it can acclimate to the space. So it's certainly not an ideal way to protect the expensive equipment that is required for stage use. You can see on the other side here there is some additional storage space. Again, we've got some limited space up there. You can see a dance floor, the acoustical shell is up there. So all of that needs to come down to be set up for performances. In addition, I mentioned that this area is not heated or cooled. This exterior wall is really only 1 block thick. It was built with the intention of a future renovation. Well, that phase 2 never happened, and phase 3 obviously isn't happening either. So this wall lets in a lot. It's very cool to the touch because it doesn't have any insulation on it. It's only 1 block thick. You can also see water seeping through. The parking lot outside is at this level, and below that you can see that when the ground gets wet, that seeps inside and actually weakens the bricks as well. So now we're in the basement of the State Theater. This is where all the dressing rooms are located. You come down from the stage and you're in the green room here, and this is where all the actors finish their makeup and make sure that their costume looks good before they go on stage. It's a pretty small space. As you can see, there are some very large electrical boxes that are completely exposed and accessible down here. That's not ideal when you've got community arts groups, and frankly not that welcoming when you have touring productions coming through here either. Part of our job when we bring in performers is to give them a nice experience as well, and it's difficult to do that with some of these limitations. Speaking of limitations, come on down. I want to show you some of the dressing rooms. This is our biggest of the 6 dressing rooms. I call it the double wide because it is literally twice the size of the rest. It's not very warm and welcoming, and when the local theater groups use this dressing room, it usually has 4 to 6 people that need to share it. So only having 1 costume bar in there, 1 clothing rack, 1 small sink gets pretty tight when you've got 4 to 6 people sharing that space. This next dressing room is a little more standard size. This is a single. However, most of the local groups will end up putting 2, sometimes 3 people in these very small spaces. It's not ideal when you're trying to get a large cast. So what do we do when there's a large cast? Sometimes there are shows that need a large number of people. I recall the Children's Theater had 84 people and a horse in the production of A Music Man. Well, you need to use every single inch that you've got trying to get that many people down here. So to do that, we actually convert part of the hallway into a dressing room. This is just a big open space, but when there's a large performance or production in here, there's a curtain right here, and we just close that curtain, and now you've got a semi-private dressing space. Semi-private for obvious reasons. Above us in this hallway are the trap doors. We actually do have 4 trap doors for the stage, and they will allow for some creative use, but you can see that there are some I-beams running across them, as well as plumbing and sprinkler heads. So we can't actually do any grand staging where pieces come up and fall down through the trap doors. So they are fairly limiting, but they do provide some fun opportunities for actors. I'm going to show you the most discussed part of the State Theater right now, and it's also the part that gives me the most disgust. It's our boiler room. Come on in. So this is it. We're actually in the basement and going even lower. This is where the boiler for the State Theater is. Here's the beast. As you can see, it's a very old, rustic piece of equipment. It's well used, it's definitely put in its time, but the fact of the matter is, every year we have to invest thousands and thousands of dollars just to repair and maintain it, and that doesn't even cover any replacement costs. It's estimated that if we were to replace the boiler, put in more energy efficient models, some redundancy, etc., that would be over $150,000. If we wanted to renovate the HVAC system, heating and cooling for the entire building, that's over $400,000. So you can see that those costs really start to add up quick when you're talking about the mechanical elements of the physical structure of this building. It would be much more efficient and a much better use of dollars if we were to collaborate on something new that could then be maintained and preserved well into the future and done properly up front, than to try and maintain and fix up this older piece of equipment, which is quite frightening. As I said when I came in here, this is actually the lowest part of the building, and every year we're on flood watch. When the spring hits and the thaw comes, or if there are heavy rains, this room is the lowest in the building and does flood. We have a sump pump on the floor that helps us keep up, but we are also pretty close to the river level. So at a certain point, if the river gets too high, it's actually the same level as this room. So our best hope is just to pump the water out as quickly as it's coming in and try and keep it level. There have been occasions where this room is flooded enough that we actually need to remove the heating element of the boiler. When that happens, obviously, then we can't use the boiler. So that heating element needs to be taken to higher ground, and the entire heating system of the theater has to be turned off. So if we're hitting the winter, that can make life pretty difficult. Well, you saw the mechanical systems. We've got some plumbing limitations too. The men's room in the basement, that cast I mentioned with 84 people in it, there are only 2 spots in here for the guys, and the women's restroom isn't much better. I shouldn't be in the ladies' room right now, but I wanted to point that out as well. Only 2 spots for the ladies downstairs here, so that large cast can get pretty backed up here in the bathroom. Bad choice of words. This stairway is another obstacle that we face. You can see that it's very steep. The cement stairs are really going to bite you. This is one of the main areas that people that are doing shows have to get things down to the dressing rooms. All of the costumes, some of the props, things that aren't necessarily used on stage first but happen in the dressing rooms, all need to come down this steep stairwell. That can make life pretty difficult. This space down in the basement is utilized for many things, and it could be used for many more if we had better accessibility. This is where the Theater Guild and Children's Theater used to construct their sets before they had their own spaces. Now it's used for rehearsal space. Community Arts, Seen and Heard Productions uses it for rehearsals. Bare Bones Ensemble Theater uses it for rehearsal space. So it does have some flexibility. Again though, this is another spot in the building that doesn't have any heating or cooling. So in the winter time, when that door opens up, lets all that cold air in, it takes an awful long time for that to warm up. So that makes the dressing rooms colder. There's no heat or air conditioning down in the dressing rooms. So anytime that winter comes around, things get pretty cool pretty quick. And this is one of those spaces that's a big space and you can't really do much with it without better accessibility. So there's your behind-the-scenes tour of the State Theater. Hope you got a chance to see some things that you haven't seen before. So next time you're sitting here in the house watching a play, you know a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes. This theater has served us very well for a long time, and if we want to continue to grow our local art scene, it's time for us to have a venue that can do that for us. Stop in any time. I'd be glad to answer any questions or give you your own tour.